MlL demanded that I pay for SlL's college after I got a big promotion. When I said no, she humiliated me at my party. Then my husband revealed that she had once paid a woman to seduce him. A couple of days ago, my husband and I hosted a party at our house to celebrate my promotion at work. I had been working for it for the past 3 years, and finally, I received it, so it was a pretty big deal. I won't go into the details of my position, but you need to know that this promotion comes with a significant raise. Of course, we hadn't discussed that with anybody, but when we told our families about it, the first question my mother-in-law asked was how much I would be getting paid. My promotion was finalized about 2 weeks ago, and a couple of days after that, my husband and I invited our families over for dinner to share the good news. Everyone congratulated me first, but my mother-in-law decided to ask me how much I would be paid. It was pretty blunt, and my father-in-law told her off about it, but I still answered her question truthfully. Honestly, it was kind of a brag on my part because I know for a fact that my mother-in-law has never liked or appreciated me. I just wanted her to know that whether she likes me or not, I'm still doing well for myself. I have to admit I was kind of gloating about it, but then she congratulated me with a straight face and said nothing else. I had assumed that the discussion was closed. However, a few days before my party, she pulled me aside to speak privately and told me that after hearing how much I was going to make, she had given it some thought and decided it would be fair to ask me to cover my sister-in-law's expenses for college. She wasn't just talking about tuition, she was referring to the general cost of living as well. Obviously, I declined immediately because my sister-in-law and I are not very close. Even if we were, I know she plans to attend college out of state, which is expensive, so if anyone has to pay for it, it should be her parents, not me. After I declined, my mother-in-law started telling me that now that I was making so much money, I owed it to the family to help them out and accused me of being selfish. I told her that I didn't care if I came off as selfish. I wasn't going to entertain the discussion and left to return to the party. I didn't expect her to follow me or make any public announcements, but once we were back in the living room, she started screaming at me. She said she couldn't believe she had allowed her son to marry someone as self-centered and fake as me. Literally everyone in the room was shocked, including me, because she had managed to hide her hatred for me pretty well until then, limiting herself to weird comments and petty actions like most nightmare mothers-in-law do. This was the first time she had a public outburst in my 4 years of marriage, and it took everyone by surprise. I didn't know what to say, so she continued yelling and said many things about me that she had likely been holding back for a long time. My husband and I had been together for 6 years and married for 4, and I guess her resentment had been building ever since we got together. She just needed an excuse to let it all out. First, she accused me of being selfish because I was the reason her son had cut down on time with his family. Apparently, since we married and moved to the suburbs, she hardly ever sees her son. I don't know why she's blaming me for it. It was a decision both my husband and I made, not something I wanted alone. In fact, my husband had told her several times that he wanted to move to the suburbs after marriage because it had always been the plan. I don't know why she can't take his word for it and needs to find something to blame me for it. Then she accused me of being fake because I pretended to get along well with my in-laws in front of people, acting like an angel from heaven, whereas in reality, I could hardly stand them, especially her. She also accused me of constantly talking about her behind her back. To be clear, I haven't done that either. I'm not even interested in talking about her, and anyone close to me can attest to that. Up until that point, neither my husband nor I had said anything. We were just letting her vent, planning to address everything at once later. But then she said something along the lines of me being a selfish miser because, in her belief, I always make my husband pay for everything, even though I make more money than him. This, like everything else she had said until then, was not true, and we were about to refute her claims. Before we could say anything, my father-in-law came to my rescue, and I'm really glad he did because we learned a lot of things we had no idea about. Before we could respond, he asked his wife to shut up and told her she was embarrassing everyone and making a fool of herself. He also said she was ruining my party for everyone else. By then, nobody understood why this was happening because she hadn't addressed the issue. After my father-in-law spoke to her, she screamed at him too, saying the only reason she was doing this was because she had kindly asked me to help pay for my sister-in-law's tuition, and I had outright refused, showing my arrogance. She felt she had to call me out on it. My father-in-law then mentioned that since we were talking about my sister-in-law's college tuition, he thought it appropriate to bring up why she no longer had a college fund. My mother-in-law started fumbling, saying it was irrelevant, but my father-in-law continued speaking over her angrily. He first apologized to both of us for all of this and told us it was absolutely not our responsibility to cover my sister-in-law's tuition. He explained that he had a college fund saved for both his children but had to give away a significant portion of that money as a settlement for a lawsuit a couple of years ago, all thanks to my mother-in-law. This was shocking because nobody in the room knew about any of this. At that point, my mother-in-law started crying loudly to distract everyone from what my father-in-law was saying, but he didn't care. He continued talking, revealing that about 3 years ago, my mother-in-law had tried to ruin my marriage by pushing another woman onto her own son. I know this sounds crazy, but it's true. I still can't believe she actually tried to do that. I remember this clearly because a couple of years ago, my husband had a woman who was constantly flirting with him, both over text and in person. Even when he told her he was married and had no interest, she wouldn't back down. Initially, we made fun of her attempts, thinking it was harmless, but it became psychotic and obsessive. The problem was that my husband had to interact with her because he worked in his father's company. He had discussed her behavior with his father since she was a junior in his department, but before his father could handle it, she quit abruptly and never contacted him again. We forgot about it until recently when we found out that my mother-in-law had orchestrated all of this. It's really disturbing. Later, that woman filed a lawsuit against my mother-in-law, and to quash it, my father-in-law had to settle with her, losing the college fund for my sister-in-law in the process. I don't want to get into the details of what happened with that woman now, but right now, I want to focus on my mother-in-law. After that huge revelation, everyone was shocked. My mother-in-law froze for a few seconds and then ran out the door. My father-in-law didn't bother chasing her. He stood with us and apologized, saying he should have told us earlier, but didn't know how without breaking everyone's hearts. He had made my mother-in-law promise never to do anything like this again and had started therapy for her because she obviously had serious issues. Neither my husband nor I knew what to say, so we told him we needed time to process this, and he left after apologizing some more. People started leaving, and the only ones who stayed were my parents. My sister-in-law hadn't attended the party anyway, so at least she was spared. After the party ended, my husband, my parents, and I sat together and discussed what we had learned. We concluded that whatever my mother-in-law had done, whether in the past or not, it was disgusting, and we did not want any contact with her anymore. I didn't even have to talk my husband into it. He readily agreed, saying he was so disgusted he couldn't speak to his mother the same way again. Additionally, despite how good my father-in-law had been to us, he had helped my mother-in-law cover everything up. We needed time and space to process everything since it was a lot to handle in one evening. So we decided to cut ties with his family for now. A few days later, my father-in-law showed up at my house, saying he needed to speak to my mother-in-law. My husband and I obviously said that was not going to happen, but he said she was ready to apologize and had been miserable since the day of the party. He explained they had a big fight after returning home, and she decided she wanted to apologize. He also mentioned that nobody else in the family wanted anything to do with her anymore. Several family members had blocked her online and told her they didn't want to associate with her because they were disgusted by her actions. I wasn't moved by that because what I found out had deeply affected me, and I didn't want to hear her apology. At least she could save it for later, when I was ready to forgive her. My husband felt the same way and told his father that we didn't want any contact, and they had to accept it. But my father-in-law refused to leave, saying he had promised his wife he would get us to speak to her. He believed it was necessary to give her a chance to apologize. I still declined, and he started telling me that by refusing, I was no different from my mother-in-law because she had always refused to give people a chance. I knew he was trying to manipulate me, but now that I think about it, he might have a point. I'm not sure how to feel, so I'm here for some unbiased opinions. Edit. A lot of people have asked me about the woman my mother-in-law paid to distract my husband from our marriage. I didn't go into details in my original post because I was in a hurry, but now I can explain. This employee, who used to work under my husband, was coerced by my mother-in-law. I waited to add this update because I wasn't fully aware of all the details. My husband spoke to their family lawyer, who was involved, and that's how he learned the whole story. Apparently, my mother-in-law met this woman at a work party hosted by her husband. She noticed the woman staring at my husband frequently, although nobody else saw it. My mother-in-law confronted her about her behavior. Even though the woman denied it, my mother-in-law figured out she fancied my husband. Instead of stopping her, my mother-in-law decided to use it against her. She obtained the woman's contact information and told her she needed to flirt with my husband, offering payment. The woman was uncomfortable and initially declined, but my mother-in-law threatened to get her fired if she didn't comply. After much convincing, the woman agreed. I don't know why she didn't report this to the authorities. Perhaps she was scared. For some time, the woman obeyed my mother-in-law and relentlessly pursued my husband, despite him being married. At first, we thought it was just a harmless crush, but it became psychotic and obsessive. My guess is that the woman realized she was being manipulated by my mother-in-law and decided to quit and block her. A couple of weeks later, my mother-in-law was served with a lawsuit. My father-in-law discovered what she had been doing and had to settle the case in mediation to avoid going to court. He had to pay the woman a significant amount of hush money and make her sign an NDA to cover everything up. We never found out about it until now. It was disturbing to realize that my father-in-law knew about it all along but never told us. Update 1. Thanks for all the comments. My husband and I have decided that we don't owe his mother anything. We don't have to hear her out if we don't want to, and that's what we're going to do. I know she wants to apologize and maybe I should give her a chance, but after everything she did to ruin our party, I don't even want to see her. My father-in-law's point doesn't hold because the reason she never wanted to give me a chance was because she hated me, and I don't want to give her a chance because she gave me several reasons to hate her. If he doesn't understand this, we know which side he's actually on. It's been a week since the party, and many of my husband's family members have reached out to tell us it must be difficult discovering this about someone we considered close. They are by our side, which means a lot because they used to be close to his mother, except me. They are choosing to do the right thing, and I don't think it can ever be easy for his family either. For example, his dad is trying to guilt-trip us into hearing his mother's apology, while his sister throws tantrums over it. As I mentioned earlier, we don't get along much anyway, which was part of why I declined to help with the college fund. Besides, if she wanted my help, she would have had to approach me herself. I wasn't going to dance to my mother-in-law's tunes. My sister-in-law contacted my husband after my father-in-law visited, yelling at him for being disrespectful towards his parents and telling him he needed to stand up to me because I couldn't just insult my in-laws and get away with it. She believes my mother-in-law didn't ask for anything unfair by demanding I fund her college education because, as family, it's my duty to look out for everyone. If I can't do that, maybe I don't deserve to be part of their family. She doesn't see anything wrong with what my mother-in-law did and doesn't think her mother needs to apologize. My husband got very upset and told her there was no reason to get involved, but since she annoyed him, he blocked her as well. However, she didn't let it go and started sending him messages through her friends' accounts. It's sad because she told all her friends about our family drama, even though it wasn't necessary. We have blocked many of her friends, but she keeps making new accounts and email addresses. I don't understand why she's being so stubborn and insists on showing she's on her parents' side. If I were in her place, I would be apologizing and trying to get on our good side to have a chance at some financial help for college. Otherwise, I'd have to take out student loans and repay them myself. It's a stupid move for her to come after us now, but she's clearly not very clever, like the rest of her family, except for my supportive husband. It hurts him to see his family act like this, and it's pretty unforgivable, but he hasn't shown it, so I don't feel guilty about anything I'm doing. I wish I could fix things for him, because he deserves a better family and better people in his life. So far, we've tolerated his mother's terrible behavior because he wanted to stay close to his dad and sister. His sister also has an attitude problem, but she's just a teenager, so we didn't take it personally. As for my father-in-law, we always got along well, so this feels like a huge betrayal. At least I have my family to help me deal with it, and so does he, through his extended family. I can't imagine going through something like this with my own parents. He has been incredibly strong for me, and I'm proud of him. I know I married the right guy. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my father-in-law visited, telling us that my mother-in-law wanted to apologize, and we weren't ready to hear her out. We just wanted some space and have maintained no contact since then. My father-in-law respected our wishes and didn't try to contact us again. However, a couple of days ago, he reached out once more, saying that now some weeks had passed, he thought it was time to give my mother-in-law a chance to apologize. We weren't interested, but we agreed to let her come over to say what she needed to say because we wanted to get it over with, knowing they would make a big deal if we refused again. They came over and my mother-in-law instantly started apologizing to both of us, crying and saying she didn't mean what she did. She said she had difficulty accepting that her son married someone she didn't approve of, making her feel worthless to him, which is why she was against me from the start. She now realized her actions were wrong and was ready to do whatever it took to make it up to us. We told her that right now, the only thing we wanted was some space. We appreciated that she had come to her senses, but wanted nothing more from her at the moment. However, she and her husband continued, saying that as parents, they screw up sometimes and understand that we are hurt by their actions, but we need to give them a chance to improve. They said nobody is perfect, implying they were trying to get defensive. I politely reminded them that what they did was not petty or insignificant. If it had been, we could have easily forgiven them, but the level of what they did was insane and would take a lot of time to forgive, maybe even impossible. They need to accept it and move on. At that point, my mother-in-law stopped crying and admitted that what she did was wrong. She was very apologetic, but it had already been done and was in the past. I couldn't ruin our family's relationship because of it. My father-in-law agreed, so I told both of them to leave because we weren't on the same page. I didn't want to waste more time with him, so I asked them to leave. Then my father-in-law looked at my husband, asking him to say something to me because he thought I was being disrespectful despite their apologies. My husband didn't say anything. He just stated that it was my house too, and that I was the one who had been insulted the most, so he wasn't going to intervene. If I wanted them to leave, they would have to leave. After that, they argued with my husband, thinking he was being too laid back and allowing the family to fall apart, but he didn't care, and they left after cursing him out. I don't regret inviting them over, because at least we got all the negativity out in the open, and now I'm hoping they won't bother us anymore. We are done with them, and today they showed that their apology was not genuine at all. If they had truly been sorry, they would have acted accordingly, which I didn't see. It doesn't matter anymore. Update 3. It's been 7 months since I last interacted with my in-laws, and thankfully, after I told them to leave my house, they haven't reached out to me again. They do keep trying to contact my husband, but he has made it clear that as long as I'm not speaking to them, he's not interested in speaking to them either. I feel a bit bad for him because I don't want him to feel alone, so I've told him he can keep in touch with his parents if he wants. However, he insists that he won't speak to anyone who has hurt me unless I do. It's pretty admirable, and I appreciate him for it. The reason I'm here is that I'm pregnant now. I have just entered my second trimester, and we made the announcement on social media yesterday. We are also having a party in a couple of weeks to celebrate, and we are not inviting his family. I found it strange that they kept trying to contact him, but now that I'm pregnant, they haven't sent a single message, not even to congratulate him, which is weird. I guess they just don't want a relationship with their grandson, and that's completely fine with both of us. Even if they come crawling back, we won't allow them to get involved in our lives again. That's final. Apart from that, we are really excited to become parents. I know it's going to be wonderful, and I truly cannot wait. Thank you, everyone, for keeping up with us.